First up, it's official. The Chinese President Xi Jinping will not be attending the G20 Summit in New Delhi on September 9th and 10th. According to the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Chinese Premier Li Qiang will be leading the Chinese delegation to the summit instead. This will be the first time that China's president will miss the G20 Leaders Summit since the first edition was held in 2008. Though in 2020 and 2021, during the COVID pandemic, President Xi attended virtually. Some analysts believe that President Xi's absence from the G20 gathering could also be seen as a snub to the host, India. Ties between India and China have been also troubled for more than 3 years after soldiers from both sides clashed in the Galwan Valley at the line of actual control. In a bid to diffuse tensions, India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi along the BRICS NSA's meeting in South Africa. More recently, China irked India releasing a map showing the state of Arunachal Pradesh as part of it. Xi Jinping is the second leader to give the G20 event in New Delhi a skip. President Vladimir Putin conveyed to Prime Minister also that it will not be possible for him to travel to India to participate in the summit. Russia will be represented by its Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Meanwhile, the US President Joe Biden earlier expressed regret over President Xi's decision to skip the meet. He said that he would meet him at a later time. And for more on this, we are now being joined by our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibbal, for the very latest on this from New Delhi. And well, Siddhant, so clearly the Chinese side making it official now that President Xi will not be attending. And this, of course, has a backdrop. At the BRICS summit, the two leaders met. There were different versions of what happened at that meeting and how it occurred. And of course, that map controversy as well leading up to the G20 meet.
Well, I'm standing just in front of the Bharat Mandapam. This is the venue of the G20 Summit, and leaders will be arriving for the summit and holding meeting in this very building. One leader who will be missing will be Chinese President Xi Jinping. It's now confirmed, as we know, by the Chinese Foreign Ministry. And it was a brief statement just confirming that Premier Li will be attending the G20 Summit in Delhi without giving any reason as to why the Chinese President is missing the G20 Summit. Now, there are several reasons which are being talked about. First and foremost is the domestic situation, the economic crisis which is being talked about in China. The second, of course, is India-China relationship. They have been tense. The Chinese have been aggressive with the Indians. And since the Galwan incident of 2020, we know that the relationship has gone southward. The third, of course, is being seen as the Chinese trying to undermine the Indian presidency of the G20 grouping. We know when it comes to the G20 conversations, the talks, how there has been resistance by the Chinese side, especially to the use of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is basically world is one. That is the basic philosophy, the guiding philosophy for India when it comes to its G20 presidency. And fourth, and perhaps the final one, is the international context. He meeting with the US President Joe Biden here in Delhi is something that the Chinese side might not be very keen on in terms of the optics. So there are several reasons. No reason officially has been given, but of course the absence of Chinese president does not mean that the summit is in danger. There are other leaders, and for India it's an opportunity to be the leader of the global south and of course emphasize on Africa, as well as India is keen that the African Union becomes a permanent invitee of this grouping.
Right, Siddhant. Thanks very much indeed for joining us with the latest there.